Agriculture and Forestry stand part of the schedules. Shane Ardern.
Speaker, thank you for the call. It's my pleasure to rise and speak in regard to agriculture and forestry. Mr. Speaker, there was comments earlier on by the Honourable Shane Jones about a need for leadership in this area, and I couldn't agree with him more, actually. There is a strong need for leadership, but the leadership need is not as much in the agricultural sector as it is in the Labor caucus, and I hope that the honourable member's probation and rehabilitation period is not too long, because the vacuum in leadership on that side of the House is such that the House will not function unless something happens to improve that. In agriculture, however, there has been some strong leadership, and there are a number of things that this government is pleased to do. And first of all, I'd like to mention in passing, because I mentioned it in my former speech, the Primary Growth Partnership, which will be a significant step forward for the agricultural sector, and I'm proud to be part of the agricultural team, ably led by the Honourable Dave Carter, that has come forward with this major initiative. Science investment, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chairman, in this sector is essential. For New Zealand's economy to prosper, there is one way and only one way that we can do that and be competitive with the world, and that is through the export of protein foods or protein products, and that is the low-hanging fruit. And I acknowledge the Minister of Trade and the Chair, the Honourable Tim Grosser. Sorry, a change of minister in my absence there. The Honourable Tim Grosser, and the fine work that Tim and the team have done internationally in opening up markets like we have never seen before, and the opportunities that exist for us to export high-tech, smart products based on the scientific work that were a part of the initiative in this year's budget round. So that has been a wonderful step forward for the agricultural sector. Changes to the Resource Management Act, Mr. Chairman, will inevitably lead to the opening up of opportunity, and one of the opportunities that is staringly obvious to anyone who spends more than 30 seconds studying the agricultural sector is the ability to irrigate some of our drier lands, particularly the Canterbury Plains, but not entirely the Canterbury Plains. In fact, the whole of the eastern belt, right up into the Hawke's Bay, where my colleague, the senior whip, represents the Napier seat. And the opportunity that could unleash in terms of economic growth for New Zealand is enormous. So the work that's already been announced, or the changes already announced, Mr. Speaker, and the work ongoing in the resource management field are essential to unlocking the potential for our primary sector. Forestry, Mr. Speaker, has been on the back foot for a long time, 9 long years at least under the former government, and I'm pleased to see the leadership of the Honourable Shane Jones has returned, Mr. Speaker, because without leadership in this field that we are now starting to see under a national government, we were in danger of our second largest export industry disappearing over the horizon, and our Australian counterparts benefiting from that. It always begged belief, in my view, Mr. Chairman, how in a country that takes 5 years longer to grow Pinus radiata tree and export it into exactly the same markets that were available to us, they were able to do that more competitively than we were. Given our distance to market is the same, given it takes them 5 years longer to grow the same product, why was it they were more competitive and better able to develop markets in that sector than we were? And the answer simply was the amount of nonsensical, silly regulation that was put in the way of that industry, tax and various other government policies led by the Labor government that brought that industry to its knees. So being able to unleash the potential, remove some of those shackles, put the right tax incentives in place, Mr. Speaker, and create an opportunity for an industry with the potential that one has to grow, Mr. Speaker, is something that we should truly be proud of. And I see you leaning forward, Mr Speaker, which probably means I don't have time to touch on the dairy industry, Mr Speaker, which is the biggest industry in the country.